Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, a lot of us with this Stephan Sterns case, of course, the homicide of Madeline Soto and her mother, Jennifer Soto, a lot of us are frustrated about this case. And much of it is because of the lack of new information coming out from the Kissimmee Police Department, which I've said numerous times I applaud, because it means they're doing a great job. They're keeping this investigation close to the vest. And it's also been said that if they get a really, really solid murder case, murder indictment, they have probable cause already that these charges that we now see will somewhat be included in the murder charges, because the murder charge will be a much higher charge, which is death penalty eligible. And these charges will act as the felony that makes this a special case, a capital case. So all of those things are taken into consideration, but the police, the Kissimmee police right now, are in the driver's seat, and they're operating this ship like the captain of the ship, because they can take their time and they can build the most solid case against this predator that you've ever seen. But when we look at this case also, there are certain things that don't sit well with any of us in law enforcement, in the true crime community, and anyone that is concerned over a predator living with a young girl for almost 6 years. And on the thumbnail right here, Stephan Sterns, what was the dynamic of a predator living within a family? Just think about that. What was the dynamic? What was his role? We saw on one document that Jennifer Soto viewed him as a stepfather. And then she viewed him as a boyfriend. What was it? Was it that he was a stepfather? Or was it that he was a boyfriend? The arrest affidavit for Stephan Sterns, of course, revealed all kinds of allegations. And it goes back to 2019, the year 2019. And as we know, the state attorney's office filed 60 new charges against Madeline Soto's mother's boyfriend. And he's not yet been charged with the murder of the 13-year-old, despite law enforcement's belief that he allegedly moved her body, which is found in rural Osceola County, on March 1st, several days after she was reported missing. So we all ask, what are they waiting for? Why haven't they pulled the trigger on this guy? Why haven't the murder charges been forthcoming? And those are some of the questions that we want to ask, as well as, how was this predator? And one of the pictures I find almost the most disturbing is this one right here, of him dressed up in his Disney World outfit there. And when the police, or when the Disney World was asked if he ever worked there, they lied. They said no. But isn't this the type of job that you would expect a pedophile to work, so he could be close to children? So those are some of the other questions we want to ask, as well as, how many more victims does this predator named Stephan Sterns, how many more victims are out there? How many more lines on an arrest affidavit could there be once the police dig even further on this predatory soul here. How many? So, folks, hold on to your seats, hold on to your hats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
So, folks, the big question, right? What was the dynamic of a predator living within a family going back 6 years? One of the things I found out today is that Madeline's biological father, Tyler Wallace, Madeline was born on February 22nd, 2011. And in April 2011, Tyler Wallace marries Tatiana Wallace. So right from sort of the beginning of Madeline's life, her biological father was not living with the mother. So that was potentially problematic, as I don't know what role he played in her life. However, he wasn't living in the same household. So that opens up all kinds of problems. And the problem being is that the mom, Jennifer Soto, who we saw quite a bit from her interview on television, she took this guy in. And it was from the time that Madeline was 13 years old. Was 8 years old, till she was 13 years old, which is the time that we know that she disappeared. And we know that Stephan Sterns has something to do with it. So my big question is, how did he ingratiate himself into this family? How did he groom not just Madeline, but her mother, Jennifer? And how was he able to live in this household, whether it be on and off for over 6 years? And when we look at his role, at one time he was called a stepfather. How was he ever a stepfather? And he was Madeline Soto's boyfriend. And we also ask, what was Jennifer Soto's role in this? How could you be a parent of starting out an 8-year-old girl and not see what was going on in your house? Is that believable to anyone in the chat, that this was going on for 6 years and Jennifer Soto knew nothing of it? Or is she an accomplice? Is she a willing accomplice or an unwilling accomplice? Those are some of the questions we have. And it was said today, and that by a reporter named Ken Jackson from the Osceola News, that once they have this murder case put together, all these charges, as horrific as they are, and as horrendous as they are, they will be put on the back burner, and they will go forward with the murder case. Because those charges, those 60 charges you see, are the underlying felony that make this case death penalty eligible. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that once the murder case is solid and the police put that forward and they get an indictment against this guy, and hopefully it will be soon, that the other 60 charges will be put on the back burner, believe it or not, and they will go forth with the murder charges.
February 25th should have been a great day for Madeline Soto. Her 13th birthday party, celebrating a new phase in her life, becoming a teenager. But it wasn't a great day. It was her last day. Madeline was reported missing the following day, and 4 days later, her body was found 22 miles from home off the side of the road in some brush. So what happened to this little girl? What was her life like? Madeline was living with her mom, Jen Soto. Jen had a boyfriend who had been in her life for about 6 years. His name is Stephan Sterns. Stephan is currently locked up. Police found disturbing images on his phone, resulting in 20 counts of child sex abuse-related charges and 40 charges involving hundreds of images and videos of that abuse. Jen refers to Stephan as Madeline's stepfather, although they were never married. Stephan is the prime suspect in Madeline's death and the last person known to be with her. Jen Soto has not made any public statements since her daughter's body was found and has not been named as a suspect. Right now, the murder investigation continues, and tonight we will take a closer look at Madeline's family dynamics. Where is her father, and how much of a role did he play in her life? Then we'll take a much closer look at the photographs, including this one of Madeline's 13th birthday. Who is that in the reflection in the glass? Who was at that party? We're looking for answers as we continue to investigate the tragic life and death of Madeline Soto.
So these are the questions that we all ask. What caused this birthday party to be the last time that Madeline Soto was to be seen alive? Why wasn't her mother at the birthday party? And why was Stephan Sterns, why did he play such a big role in her life? He was certainly not her stepfather, right? He was her mom's boyfriend, seems on and off. Now, when we talk about these 60 charges that were filed by the state attorney general's office, along with those charges goes the fact that each one of them were pulled off images on a cell phone that have been vetted to find out, to match them to a location. And many of them, the location was Jennifer Soto's home, Madeline Soto's home, the place that Stephan Sterns was living. So matching these images to a location, matching these images and these charges to a date. And that's the beauty about digital evidence. And there's nothing beautiful in this case except the evidence against this guy. So they take the digital evidence inside that phone and they match it up against this predator, right? And then add that when he tried to erase his phone, to erase all the images on his phone until he realized, or he didn't realize, he found out that he couldn't do that because the images were still there. And that's what has him in the Osceola County Jail right now, facing life in prison. But we're not satisfied with that because Madeline Soto was murdered. And we want the person who did this to answer for these charges. And so far, the charges have not been forthcoming. So when we talk about going back and what was his role in this family, how did he get in so close with this family besides being the mother's boyfriend and at one time her calling him the stepfather of Madeline? Well, in the cases of a predatory offender like this, there's something called grooming. He groomed his way into that. He groomed his way into the life of this little girl. He groomed his way in so that she wouldn't tell anybody. And did something change on her 13th birthday? That now all deals were off and that deal was no longer going to be adhered to, because she had even said that she wanted to run away and live in the woods. If that's not a sign of abuse, I don't know what is. And I'm no psychologist, no child psychologist. I don't have to be. A little girl saying she wants to run away and live in the woods. Your home when you're a child should be the place that you're most comfortable being in. It's your safe place, right? But yet, this was not a safe place for Madeline Soto because she had this predator living with her, among her, in the same household with her mom, who was supposed to be protecting her. This same Disney World predator, right? And we'll say it. Disney World didn't want to admit that he worked for them, but there he is in their uniform, right? And you think about who this guy is and how many other children must have been the savage's victims, right? How many others? How many other victims are there of this predatory man? Do we know? No, right now we don't know. But that's why what we want is for this murder indictment to come forward. And many of us, of course, are waiting for the autopsy results, right? We want to know how Madeline was killed, right? One thing we do know, and people frequently forget this, we know the manner of death because that was already ruled, wasn't it? It was ruled a homicide. It's being called a murder. So we know that already. But what we don't know is the cause of death. And what could that be? Could be many things. Could be asphyxia, strangulation, blunt trauma. Could be poisoning. It could be someone was drugged. All of those things are possibilities, but we don't know that yet, do we? So all of these things that we're waiting on. Debbie McCarthy from the chat, he's disgusting, makes me sick to think of what he did to that poor girl. And God knows who else. Well, Debbie McCartney, that's what we're going over now. You're right. Predators like this don't have single victims. They're usually very prolific, which is very, very scary that they have so many victims. Michelina Sereno, he cannot be in general population, no doubt. I don't know why you guys are worried about his life in jail, because right now I think the jailers know this and they're not going to put him anywhere near the general population because he wouldn't probably last. Just like Rex Human, the Gilgo Beach serial killer on Long Island, they cannot put him in general population, and they're aware of that. In fact, whenever he has to move from one part of the jail to another part of the jail, they have to lock the jail down and move him and then get him to where he is, have him locked in a safe place, and then they can reopen the jail. There's special jail and prison procedures that will protect inmates like this, but let's not worry about him right now. So we all ask the question, when is the murder indictment coming down? And the beautiful thing about this, if there's anything beautiful about this whole case, is that they don't have to rush. They don't have to rush whatsoever.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Great to have you aboard on this Friday night as we continue to cover the story of Madeline Soto, who was just a little girl. We have to remember that through all of this. This is just a little girl. And any of you who have raised little girls, or maybe you were a little girl years ago, think about her life and what she went through, what she had to deal with at such a young age. 13 years. That's it. Then she's gone. But what she went through and suffered in the years building up to that, unimaginable. Now, when I think of this little girl, you have to think about when you're a child, you know, your world is a little smaller, right? When you get older, the world gets bigger. You meet more people, you go more places. But when you're a child, your world is small. It's your group of friends. It's the kids in your class, and obviously it's the people in your home. So what exactly was Stephan Sterns' role? Was he actually the so-called stepfather?
See, that's what we're talking about. What was Stephan Sterns' role? And again, you see up on the screen, was this a family? Was he living in a family type relationship, taking the role as the stepfather, which is very scary.
Maybe they did. Maybe they secretly got married. I don't know. I haven't heard that. But was this really like back to school night? Does he go to back to school night? Does he know the teachers? Was he one of the emergency numbers that they would call and you would put it down? Oh, if you can't get through to mom, get through to Stephan. Is that the way this family was functioning?
So, all of those things are questions that we have, but something, the most important thing really is what this abuse, when did it start and how long was it going on? And in that we have the digital evidence of the phone.
And Tyler Wallace together, they have a child. They conceive a child, and that child is Madeline. Madeline is born on February 22nd, 2011. Okay, so we go back to 2011. What a cute baby. What a cute baby, right? So there's dad, there's mom. Now, Tyler Wallace marries Tatiana Wallace in April of 2011.
So I had brought that up before, that this Tyler Wallace that you see the picture on the screen is Madeline's biological father. And of course, her mother's Jennifer Soto. And below Tyler is Tatiana Wallace. And Madeline was born in February, and in April, he married Tatiana. So obviously, Tyler Wallace was not in day-to-day, was not in Madeline's life. So she didn't have her biological father living with her from a very young age, from birth almost. And so at some point, the mom, Jennifer, a normal person, had boyfriends, and this very specific one, Stephan Sterns, she chose a winner. And I mean that in the worst sense of the word. She chose this guy, and this guy lived in their home. And was he living in their home as if it was a family type relationship? That's what we keep getting back to this. What was the dynamic of a predator living within a family? And how difficult would it be for most people to spot this? And I know I'm not trying to oversimplify it, because There are people out there probably right now listening to this show that may have someone living in their home that they don't totally trust. And then why isn't this person getting rid of that person? I'm not going to oversimplify that either. It could be financial, psychological, attachment, all different types of reasons. But all of those reasons have to be thrown out the window if a mother suspects any type of abuse whatsoever. Then the person that's living has to go, has to get the hell out, right? And if anything untoward happened in regards to a child, the mom should be sprinting to the local police station, right? Sprinting. And again, I know I can oversimplify this, but there is no other way to look at this. It is just a horrific situation. So when we ask, was this a family type situation? Was Stephan Sterns living with Jennifer and Madeline Soto in a family type situation? Meaning, was he playing a role? He must have been babysitting or looking after Madeline. If you can call it that. He wasn't looking after. He was predatory, right, in his nature. And so when we think about that, right, it's scary to find out. You know, Vinnie Politan has on some really good guests, of course, Dr. Brancato, who's an expert on human behavior, and Joseph Scott Morgan. I'm going to play a little bit of Dr. Brancato here, and he's going to give us what he has to say in regards to this.
So let's bring in our guests and start working through some of all of this. Joining us tonight in Orlando, Florida, Osceola News-Gazette reporter Ken Jackson is with us. In New York, clinical and forensic psychologist, researcher, and expert on violent crime, and the author of the book, The New Evil, Dr. Gary Brucato is back with us. And in Jacksonville, Alabama, forensic death investigator, host of the Body Bags podcast, and professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan. Welcome to everyone. Before we get into the family dynamics and everything, Ken, I wanted to go to you on the latest news tonight in terms of what's happening in the case involving Stephan Sterns, because he has been charged facing, 60 counts?
Right. Thanks for having me on, Vinny, to close out the week. Yeah. So this week, the state attorney's office levied 60 charges, among them sexual abuse on a child under 12, sexual abuse on a child between 12 and 18, lewd and lascivious molestation, and then 40 counts of basically possessing child porn with the act of a child. So court dates were set this week. First of all, he was scheduled for an arraignment on April 2nd. I'm going to be using terms that you'll be familiar with from your time in the courtroom. It was set for the morning of April 2nd, which is a Thursday. Sometime today, this morning, this afternoon, that appearance was waived. Now, when he was first arrested back on February, the last week of February, he refused an initial court appearance. And then for the reading of the charges, he did not appear in court either. His public defender appeared in his stead. So Stephan Sterns has yet to appear in court, and it appears that he's trying to avoid this at all costs.
Isn't that interesting that Stephan Sterns doesn't want to appear in court? Well, there's cameras in some of these courtrooms. Is it because everyone knows what he did already, right? Does he not want to just show his face because it's the court of shame? He has more than shame to look forward to here. From the chat, Lizzie Hirschberger, author of Behind the Blue Curtain, an Amish girl's look at abuse in the Amish community. Your question on whether Jen knew about the abuse of her daughter by Stephan, or was she was she an accomplice? My unlicensed opinion is coming from my own experience. Jen knew about it to some extent. Well, Lizzie, thank you so much for your input. That's Lizzie Herzberger, author of the book, and I would advise everyone to get it, Behind the Blue Curtain. I'll write it in the chat. You can get it on Amazon, and it tells her story, a story of abuse within the Amish community. And Lizzie Herzberger is a wonderful woman and has been on the show several times, and I really appreciate her input. So why is Stephan Sterns afraid to go to court? He sends his lawyer and he's not present. Does anyone have any opinion on that in the chat? Schmitty, concurrently running podcasts with both shows I am members of. No fun, trying to be fair, 15 minutes each. Well, that's okay. Well, thank you so much, Schmitty. Appreciate it. Kristen Strobel, Kissimmee, Florida. What do you suppose is going on with the grandfather to allow 41 other people to move into Jennifer's house? I don't know much about that right now, so I'm not going to comment on it. Lorraine Raymond from the chat. Does anyone know who was at Maddie's birthday party at the grandmother's house? You know, Lorraine, that's another thing that I would be sure that the Kissimmee police know. What they're doing right now is they're digging. They're digging everywhere. They're digging in every type of direction to find out what we would call on this show the perpology. What is the perpology? That's the study of the perp, the study of the arrestee, and dig deep into this guy. Where has he been? Where has he lived? Does he have any other victims? Thankfully, he was stupid enough to take pictures on his phone and leave them on his phone, which is the most powerful evidence, the digital evidence, because that digital evidence, not just pictures, but times and dates, and it goes back 8 years. So it is the most powerful, the strongest evidence you could possibly have. And here he is, the dope in his Disney World outfit, you know. That gives investigators another venue, another potential avenue of abuse, right? So how are we going to find out if he was abusing children at Disney World? Well, it gets a little more complicated since obviously Disney World will not cooperate, right? But it gives us another avenue to look at, because that's part of the perpology, the study of the perp. Who is this guy, right? And let's go back far. And we've had on other YouTube channels alleged friends call in that's saying, oh, he's been doing this for a long time. What's wrong with that guy? Then why is he calling a content creator on YouTube? Why wasn't he calling the police or offering up what he knew to the police, not to a content creator on YouTube? Tierney Loberg, I think Stephan doesn't want to go into court because he would be on camera and inmates will know what he looks like and what he did, making his remaining years miserable. Tierney Loberg, I somewhat agree with you, but I think everyone in that jail knows what he did. You know, inmates in a jail, they get TV and they get to see who this dirtbag is, right? Lieutenant Pete Franzo, good to see you, buddy. Hey, Bill and Police Off the Cuff chat friends. It's Lieutenant Pete, Harlem Raiders fame. Always good to see you, Lieutenant Pete. Lizzie Herzberger, thank you so much, Lizzie, for the 1999 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Let me see if I could pull you up on the screen. As I said, Lizzie Herzberger has the book Behind the Blue Curtain, and she is an expert on this type of thing. There she is, Lizzie Herzberger. Thank you so much. She was a victim of this type of thing within the Amish community, and Lizzie is a survivor. Not just a survivor, but a survivor who now is helping other people, and it's really, really appreciated. by everyone that knows her. Kissimmee, Florida, renting out rooms in that community is extremely common. There are 456 houses, 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms like Jennifer's. Owners are known to rent rooms for side income. Kissimmee, Florida, that's okay, but that's a dangerous thing to do, to bring. If it's in your house, within your house proper, I would never feel safe doing that, Then you're living with someone that you really don't even know, So I think that's a little scary to do something like that. And people do it. Yeah. It's commonly done, but it doesn't mean it's a safe activity to do.
To make an appearance. Now, court dates have been set. His trial has been set to start for the week of the May 13th docket, with a pretrial hearing set for April 24th. Now, you and I know that in many cases like this, especially with something with an expansive amount of evidence, many times defense attorneys will ask for a continuance. Put it down a couple months down the line. There have been more than one people that have said that. In fact, Belvin Perry, who was the judge in a case you're very familiar with back in Orlando here about a decade ago, said much the same thing. They may ask for a continuance to delay the trial in order to, build a defense.
Yeah, you're going to have to build that from scratch. It's just a tough case.
Exactly. And the other thing is these may just be dates on a website, since we still don't have murder charges in the case. And I think once murder charges are filed, I think all this is going to go up in the air.
See, I agree with him. I happen to 100% agree with him. These charges, although extremely serious, and build the strongest foundation for the police, this is the underlying felony that makes a murder of a child a death penalty case, and also the age of the child. But these underlying felonies will make this case, once they bring the murder case, will make it a death penalty case. So I happen to agree with this reporter, his name is Ken Jackson from the Osceola News, that once the murder case is brought forward, they'll put this on the back burner. They won't throw out the charges. They'll go forward with the murder. And these charges will be taken into the consideration probably in sentencing, and consideration of whether or not this dude will get the death penalty. Diamond Driver, what kind of mother would allow their daughter to sleep in bed with themselves and their boyfriend? The man does not need to be there, period. Diamond Driver, I happen to agree with you. Graylin Almonte, perpetrators thrive by controlling a narrative. He's no longer in control. And that's the reason why he will not appear in court. I think he's terrified, and probably has good reason to be terrified, because all of this evidence, it's not just an allegation. There's video, there's pictures, there's times, there's dates, there's locations. How do you argue that? How does this dirtbag argue that? How does his attorney argue that? You know what the argument will be? The attorney will try to get it thrown out. And remember, we mentioned that the police asked permission. Could we look through your phone? And what did he say? Well, he thought he had done a reset on his phone. So he thought he did a factory reset, it was called. So he thought all the pictures, they were gone. So, yeah, sure, go look through my phone. What he didn't realize, they were still there. So what would the police do once they saw this evidence? This is what I hope they did, and I've mentioned this before on my show. If he signed a consent form, yes, you can look through my phone. Okay, that's good. Once they discover bad stuff, I would have stopped looking. And as a boss, I would have said to my detective, stop right now, put the phone away, go to court, tell the judge what you saw in this phone based on a signed permission to look through the phone. And now you stopped because now you saw things that gave you probable cause to charge him with some very serious charges. So now go to court and get a search warrant. I'm not sure that the Kissimmee police did that, but I would think that they probably did do that because they're a good police department and they're doing everything else correctly. So why would I think that they wouldn't have done this correctly? Bill, is it possible his attorney will claim he gave consent to search his phone while under the influence of drugs, as he said he was at the vape shop that Monday morning? Kissimmee, Florida, his attorney will say anything. But I think the first way he'll attack it is saying, oh, my client was intimidated by the police, and as such, he just gave them permission. So I think that, Your Honor, you should throw out the evidence inside his phone. That's what an attorney is going to try to do. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime, from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. We appreciate all you guys, our friends, our fans, our subscribers, and you are what makes this show go and what makes it possible to do every week.
Absolutely, I agree 1,000%. Dr. Gary Brucato, I want to pick up on something Ken just said. This guy doesn't want to be seen in public. What does that tell you about Stephan Sterns? He doesn't show up for his arraignments. Wait, I don't want to be seen. Don't put me in. He knows in Florida there's cameras in every courtroom.
Well, it's impossible to say precisely what it means, but I think that we have to begin to envision that this offender, if he is guilty, is a lot like a lot of other people who engage in pedophilic acts, a rather interpersonally odd, detached, fantasy-oriented kind of an individual. But at the same time, what we see here are interesting elements of the groomer type of offender who tends to be a little bit more interpersonally adept and clever. The whole point of a groomer is that you use your relationship skills to lure the victim, as opposed to a more odd person who just snatches somebody in a car or something like that. But I think that what you're getting is a sense of a person who's just not very adept interpersonally, which is probably why he engages in a relationship with a child. I wouldn't expect this person to be particularly good at having adult, normal relationships.
And one follow-up on all this, Dr. Gary Brucato, for Madeline Soto, understanding this family tree, that her father marries someone who's not her mother right around the time she's born. So stepmom is in her life, presumably her entire life. What's it like for that child? And if that child is being abused, what are your thoughts about the child coming forward or not coming forward to either parent about what's happening?
Well, first of all, I will say that I think one of the things that makes this type of figure so particularly diabolical in the public's eye is that you're talking about an offender who probably took advantage of the fact that this child was missing a certain kind of a figure in her life, which creates a vulnerability where you can come in and be a dad figure, spend time with the person, engage in creating a kind of a confidence. And it's a way of sort of taking a kid who might be feeling kind of abandoned or dropped and suddenly making them feel special. And that is taken advantage of by this type of offender to groom a child and then engage in increasingly perverse contact. What I think is you probably had a child who, where the offenses were so normalized over time that she perhaps didn't realize that some of these things were outrageous, or engaged in this kind of relationship thinking that it connected her to this outrageous person. And that's why it is very interesting to think about why the child would have to be eliminated at 13. It makes you wonder if it's that she was getting to an age where she was realizing that what was happening was wrong, or could talk about it, or perhaps had aged out of the age range that this offender was attracted to.
all of those right there are really interesting points raised by Dr. Gary Bucato. One of them, he just said, the last thing he said was that perhaps Madeline had aged out in regards to the type of people, type of young women that Stephan Sterns was attracted to. Very scary, right? And maybe also because she had reached this certain age, that she had just realized in her mind, think of the psychological damage that this type of abuse caused over the years. And maybe on her 13th birthday, she realized that, no, I'm not doing this anymore. This is really outrageous. Did she tell anyone? Did she tell her friends? Did she tell her mother? Look at, she wrote on her phone that she wanted to run away and live in the woods. How sad is that, right? Diamond Driver, well, you're very welcome. I try to read as many. Natalie, we've heard that before. She could be, but you know something? That's one of the things that we will find out, or the police will find out when the autopsy results come back. I don't know if Florida law doesn't allow. Usually, when someone is dead, that's the rights of privacy go out the window in most states, and that's the way. I'm pretty sure that's the way it is in New York. So I don't know if in Florida that if they won't publish or release the autopsy results because, of course, Madeline was a juvenile. I don't know. Susan Jones, great point, and I've raised it numerous times. Was Maddie ever seen by a doctor? Wouldn't that be something maybe that, an examination by a doctor you can't tell me between the ages of 8 and 13 that a doctor doesn't examine a young girl and physicals, that you would see something perhaps from this level of abuse that might raise a red flag. And I had asked that very early on in this, and then someone raised the specter, well, how about that doctor from Michigan that was the gymnastic girls doctor, the champion gymnastic girls, and he had hundreds of girls over years that he had abused, and some of them right in the examination room with their parents present. So, when you think about these, how diabolical these predators are, and the lengths they will go to do this, it's just Susan Jones, I agree with Natalie. A pregnancy would have been the end of both Jen and the pervert, so she had to go. Yeah, I mean, we can all speculate. Teddy Burr, that case made me sick and livid. You're referring to the doctor. I don't have his name at the tip of my tongue, but he was a famous sports doctor that worked on gymnastics, great gymnastics athletes. Choosy heretics choose Carnation Revolution now. HIPAA appears to be designed to protect the Inquisition. Lisa Tyndale from the chat, I think Florida would charge for 2 deaths if Maddie was pregnant. We could speculate about that, but we don't know for a fact that is the case. Let's go back to the Dr.
But it's unclear what that's about. But I think we have to understand the dynamics of abuse, and that there's a mixture of fear and being confused that this person loves you.
I want to put up on the screen a social media post. This is from 2012 to give you an idea again about the family dynamics and the family that Madeline Soto was a part of. On February 4th, 2012, Tyler Wallace, her dad, posts a picture of Madeline on Facebook. And his mother, Donna Wallace, writes, I am meeting my precious grandbaby in less than 2 weeks. And I don't know if grandma lives out of town or whatever, but it seems like she was going to be there with the grandbaby for birthday number 1. Another interesting note, we haven't heard much from Dad, and I can imagine this has got to be tearing him apart, but there he is with Tatiana, his wife. And dailymail.com reported this on March 2nd, a quote from Tatiana, who is the stepmom. There she is. My stepdaughter, Madeline, has been missing for more than 72 hours. With Stephan Sterns behind bars, we can concentrate on finding her, share her photo with everyone you know. That was Tatiana Wallace, who was the stepmom, who was stepping in. Joseph Scott Morgan, looking at the world that this little girl was in, it is incredibly sad and tragic to think that she got stuck in that house with this man, Stephan Sterns. And I'm wondering what his role was in that house, if they were functioning like a family and he had that sort of, parental power that we have with our children.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think for me, one of the things that comes up here is this idea that he is documenting all of this. There's one date that sticks out in my mind in this, and I think that there is a date that goes back on, I think, this affidavit that was filed with some of this imagery that goes back to 2019. And you can do the arithmetic there and get an idea that she would have been about 8 years old. Just let that settle down into your groundwater there for a moment, moving forward. And you think about how long this has been going on, and Dr. Gary had made a very salient point about the normalization of this activity that's been going on, and he has documented it all along. And I got to tell you that for the prosecution, this is a gold mine, what they're talking about here, because you're talking about being able to have all of these benchmarks along the way, methodically documented within that household moving forward. And it's going to be one whale of the case that the prosecution is going to have.
You know, it's amazing. I just mentioned that, and the treasure trove of evidence inside Stephan Sterns' phone is going to be what nails him to the wall, because not only does it these horrific pictures that he has, but has times, it has dates, and picture speaks 1,000 words. You can identify the location from the pictures, from the videos, which the police did, said many of them, or almost all of them, were inside Jennifer Soto's home. So, treasure trove of evidence, my God, this is evidence that will nail this guy. But as the reporter from the Osceola Times said, Ken Jackson, chances are that this case will never go to trial because the murder case will be ready and they'll go forth with that. And that's what's going to nail this guy. And the images from the phone will be the underlying felony that gets this dirtbag the death penalty, which he so much deserves.
On their hand. It's going to be a mountain of evidence is what it's come down to. And my friend, we haven't even talked about, what the medical examiner is going to conclude at this point, because we don't know.
Yeah, with that hasn't been concluded yet. And we're waiting to hear manner, cause, and any other details that may come out. Ken Jackson, let me ask you about these family dynamics. What have you uncovered about dad and stepmom? Jen Soto, any word on where she is? I know she's kind of been out of sight for a while here.
I tell you, she's playing the great role of prisoner of war. We have not heard from her. What I had heard last week was that I heard second or third hand that she had lawyered up. When we go back through social media, you see references to Stephan going back to about 2018. And the scary part about this is that the charges, the forensic evidence that Kissimmee police have put together is that that a lot of the cases in the charges likely occurred starting in June of 2019. That's less than a year or so from 2018. So what scares me, as the parent of a teenage daughter, is that, you know, how long did it take for Jen Soto, mom, to enter into the relationship with Stephan Sterns, the boyfriend / stepdad? I have a hard time calling him stepdad in everything that I've read. Before all this started to happen, that's the chilling thing. Where when we get the investigation from KPD, hopefully soon, it will answer those questions. And we've got a lot of questions and a lot of dots to connect and a lot of the T's to cross when that investigation comes out.
Dr. Gary Brucato, what do you think of that timeline of the relationship of Jen and Stephan Sterns, like 2018, and then the first allegation here, based upon what they found on the phone, the digital images, is in June of 2019? Like that, would that be quick in your mind, going from, you know, getting into mom's life and then doing what he's alleged to have done to her daughter?
Not at all. In fact, offenders that I've spoken to have told me that sometimes they choose to marry a woman because they have spied the child that the woman has. You remember, for example, that occurs in the Nabokov book Lolita, where he chooses to marry a woman because she has the underage daughter that he's attracted to, grooms her, and then winds up in a relationship with her. And so the idea would be to become involved, and then there's a period of some months to a year, so forth, etc., depending upon the case, where you groom the child, break down boundaries, you know, and normalize things. One very important elephant in the room here that I haven't heard anybody else talk about is that a person who engages in pedophilic behaviors like this does not start doing that in their 30s. Chances.
Wow. You know something? I've been saying this all along, that a person, and that's Dr. Gary Brancato, he says a person that starts in pedophilic behaviors does not start in their 30s. So what that tells us is that this predator, this pedophile, probably has hundreds and hundreds of victims out there. And that's another reason why the Kissimmee police need to dig. I mentioned the perpology, the study of the background of the perp. Let's get everything we possibly can get on this guy. Another interesting thing is that sometimes these predators will choose, in this case, the mother, to get closer to the daughter. How scary is that, folks? How scary is that? Someone mentioned in the chat before, when we were trying to find out the name of that doctor from Michigan, it was Larry Nassar, who I believe abused athletes for years and years and years, and he's doing life in prison right now. I just wanted him to have his name put out in the wall of shame. Here's Dr. Brancato again.
Are what is eventually going to happen if he's guilty of this is we're probably going to determine that this was not his first experimentation with this. Usually these kinds of offenders have scores of victims. Sometimes they've even worked jobs that have put them in contact with children so they can experiment with touching children, finding ways to earn their confidence. For example, I had heard some idea that he potentially worked at Disney World. And this is very interesting because it would place a person easily in contact with children, particularly if you're wearing a costume. We all know the story of John Wayne Gacy dressing up as a clown so that children would touch him. So that this becomes a way of breaking down boundaries and gaining confidence of children. And I think when we look at that age, we have to be very, very concerned that there probably were priors. And then, of course, it raises the question, if he turns out to be involved in the murder, is this the first time that that has happened? I would say that I would not be surprised on either count.
Amazing, right? Amazing.
February 25th.
That Dr. Brancato raised the specter, and I had said it numerous times before, that this wasn't his first time. All right. This wasn't the first person that he's abused. And I don't know whether he knew the case that well, but he mentioned also taking a job where you can be closer to children, right? Which we showed the picture of him in his little Disney outfit, right? Here it is right up on the screen. So was that accidental, or was that part of his whole MO, his whole method of operation, that he was a pedophile and he was trying to get closer to children? You tell me, what do you think? What do you think happened? You think that that's why he worked at Disney World? You think that was accidental? Or do you think it's all part of this predatory behavior, this predatory pedophilic behavior, as was put by Dr. Braccato there? I'm going to put this up on the screen, just a little.
Closely. And tonight, the investigation into the death of a 13-year-old Central Florida girl continues.
Madeline Soto's body was found just over a week ago after a days-long multi-county search effort. And while no one has been charged in her death yet, the prime suspect in the case, according to investigators, is a man who was supposed to be there to protect her mother's boyfriend, Stephan Sterns. It is a story that has impacted people across Central Florida and the country. And tonight, our Rafael Pires breaks down where the investigation is at right now and how things unfolded.
About 2 weeks ago, Madeline Soto was supposed to be getting dropped off right here at Hunters Creek Middle School. We're told she never made it. Instead, the story took a disturbing turn, and now investigators are still trying to figure out how she was killed.
From a missing teen case to a murder investigation, the story of Madeline Soto has impacted people across the country and left many in Central Florida mourning the tragic loss. It all started Monday, February 26, when Madeline's mother, Jennifer Soto, reported to police that her daughter had gone missing.
In my heart, I feel like somebody took her.
The next day, Jennifer told our crew her boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, dropped her daughter off at a church near Hunters Creek Middle School where Maddie attended. He told investigators she wanted to walk the rest of the way, but never made it.
I dropped her off. Everything looked fine when I drove away. It's the last time we saw her.
From there, a large search effort got underway.
When we watched that of him with his fake little cry there,
search effort got
it
underway.
really,
It's the last time we saw her.
From there, a large...
It really gets you pissed off when we know what happened now, and you see his crocodile tears and his fake tears. It really is quite
search
disturbing.
effort got underway.
We have well over 100 deputies, detectives, intelligence analysts, and specialized personnel who are investigating this case and searching for Madeline right now.
Several other agencies joined in, and then on Wednesday, a bombshell arrest. Late at night, the Orange County Sheriff announced the arrest of the mother's boyfriend for sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material, and named him the prime suspect in the case. Then the sheriff said he believes Sterns never dropped off Madeline in the first place, and told us he was captured on camera throwing her backpack and school laptop into a dumpster Monday morning. Deputies say Maddie's body was seen in Sterns' car before he drove away.
We believe she was already dead at the time and that Stephan Sterns moved her body in the early morning hours on that day.
2 days later, a major but tragic discovery. Maddie's body was found in a rural area in St. Cloud, several miles away from the family's home in Kissimmee. Since then, her community has been mourning the loss.
It was like a hole is missing because everybody at school, even, they're like sad.
Investigators now also looking at the discrepancies in the mother's statements after learning there were inconsistencies about the last time she says she saw Maddie. And Kissimmee police say investigators are continuing to dig through evidence against Sterns.
As more evidence comes up, there may be more charges in the future.
So as of right now, no one has been charged in Madeline's death. But again, the prime suspect is Stephan Sterns, the mom's boyfriend. That's according to investigators. We did reach out to Kissimmee police over the weekend. They told us there is no update as of right now, but sources tell us we could have new information as early as this week. For now, reporting.
So, folks, to update, no, there has been no murder charges yet. The Kissimmee police are working diligently, but they don't have to rush. They do not have to rush the case because he's not going anywhere. And you notice he's not even going to his court appearances. So if the prosecution puts forth that they're ready to go, what do you think the defense will do? They'll ask for a stay. They'll ask for a delay. We're not ready. We need more time to prepare. And whose hands does that play into? Well, the police, of course, because it gives them more time to prepare the murder investigation. And because I will tell you right now, they have probable cause to arrest him for the murder right now. Right now they do. But they want to make sure not only that they have probable cause, that they have a slam dunk case against this dirtbag. Right? They don't want just a good case. They want a slam dunk case. Kissimmee, Florida at 7:35 a.m. Sterns is on camera by the community dumpster tossing what appeared to be a book bag and laptop, both of which detectives recovered from the dumpster. Both belonged to Madeline. Yes, we know that. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Susan Jones, did the pervert lead Maddie into believing they had a special relationship that had to be kept a secret undercover until she turned 13? He was able to control her somehow psychologically. Susan Jones, you're so correct. Carmelita Dorsey, I was suspicious as soon as I saw mom comforting him. Disgusting. Elizabeth K., what time did she check Madeline's laptop? Unknown. I don't know the answer to that. Kissimmee, Florida, at 8:19 a.m., his car was captured on cameras coming into the community with what appears to be Madeline slumped in the passenger seat, not moving. Yes, all of this is evidence that no doubt gives the police probable cause, but you notice they're not pulling the trigger on this case yet because he's not going anywhere. And they want to have the most tightest case they can possibly have. Folks, if you're looking for a great defense attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and now a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. We really appreciate Joe. So the whole dissertation, of course, of this case today was this thumbnail here. Stephan Sterns, what was the dynamic of a predator living within a family? And we raised the specter. Was he a father figure? Was he the mother's boyfriend? Was he a live-in babysitter? What we know now is he was a predator living in a family situation that took advantage of a young girl starting at the age of 8 years old till she was 13. And all we can hope, guys, is that the Kissimmee police, and I know they will, they're going to bring in a murder indictment against this guy, and they're going to get a conviction of this guy after trial. Is there anyone in the chat that thinks they have the wrong guy? And usually at this point, I get someone that says, he's innocent until proven guilty. Not so much on this case do I get people saying that. And I understand the system. Yes, the accused is innocent until proven guilty, but does anyone think that the police don't have the evidence against this guy? I don't know. I think they got the right guy. Schmitty. No, hell no. Right guy. Yes, you're right, Schmitty. Absolutely. Crack a cold case. He's a predator. Yes, he's a predatory individual. I have no doubt. Lisa Tyndall, little Maddie had such a terrible life. It's heartbreaking. Yeah, I think you're right. Lucy Liu, right guy for sure. Yeah, I think you're right, Lucy Liu. Kissimmee, Florida, the cover lie of Jennifer was she was tired and called Sterns to drive Madeline to school. But Madeline was apparently already dead. Yeah, I think they absolutely, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, he's the perp. No doubt, no doubt. Lori Redmond, I think the mom did something to Maddie. Look, we're going to find out whether the mother is involved in this. Right now, again, till they bring this murder case forth, Jennifer Soto is sort of out of sight, out of mind as far as we're concerned. A wilder, a predator with the mother, could not known he was guilty and who allowed opportunity for him. Yeah, I think so. Well, guys, that's going to be our show for this evening. I want to thank everyone. I actually put this show together right sort of at the last minute, and I think it was pretty educational. It's an important case, you know. It's a heartbreaking case. It's a case that we've all been following since the beginning. And I want to thank all you guys and all the people in the chat that offered up their thoughts and, you know, their prayers for Madeline Soto. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. Have a great night, and God bless everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.